Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video here on Raid Shadow Legends, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of a review here of this character here, who I recently picked up after I passed the 30-day mark, High Katoon. Now, if you've been playing a little bit longer, you might know something about this character, but for those new players out there, I do want to talk about the value of this character, whether or not that she's actually worth building. And I want to talk about her kit and maybe compare to some other characters that at least I have in my roster. I know that when it comes to games like Raid, the game is going to be different depending on what characters that you pulled with shards, and so not everyone's roster is going to be the same. However, this will be, because everyone's going to get High Katoon after 30 days. So I do want to talk about the value of this character, and if you find the information in this video helpful, then do me a favor, click that subscribe button and ring that notification bell for all videos Raid here on the Boilon channel. And before we get started with the rest of the video, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started an account on Raid Shadow Legends yet, then you can download the game using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen, or using the link in the description down below to get yourself a free Epic Rector draft alongside some other freebie resources which you'll use. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself this Ugo, who is one of the best epic characters in Raid Shadow Legends. I am using them every single day on my roster, so don't delay, and they'll definitely help you out in your start. Now, let's just get started with a review or an overview of High Katoon as a character. So she is a spirit or thunderbolt character, green character, however you describe these things, especially for new players who have to get used to this the coding system, right? She is of the barbarian faction here. She is epic and she is support. Now, her basic A1 attack is actually pretty decent. Now, what it only attacks one time, but what I like about it is that obviously it has a chance to apply a 30% speed decrease debuff for 2 turns. It's only a 25% chance though, and in order to get that up to about 40%, you do need to put some epic books into her, and that's what we're going to be talking about in a little bit here, because epic books are not as easy to come by as rare books, obviously. But this does kind of bring into question the overall value and priority, I guess, of her over maybe some other characters that you might have in your roster. Her A2 is really, that's the meat of it, kind of, and that's Rally the Hordes here. It fills speed bar, turn bar by 15% to all allies, and a 30% speed buff, assuming that you have the purple 3 or Ascension 3. Not that difficult to get to, so you should be able to do that. So this skill is pretty nice, but she also is a turn bar manipulator by decreasing the turn meter by 15%. Now, again, the only issue that I have with this, of course, is kind of like the basic, is that it is only a, well, 50% chance is not very high. It does go up to 75% if you have the books, but you do need to put a handful of them in there in order to get that. So there is some small concern that I have with this character, and I guess depending on what you have available in your roster, you might have some other characters that can kind of do something similar. We're going to take a look about some of the characters that I have in mind. However, she does have a pretty good aura. So this is available in all game modes, where it's speed by 19%. And we do know that speed is some of the most important stats in Raid Shadow Legends, because the more speed that you have, the more turns that you're going to take. And so realistically, like even like 19%, right? That's like for every 5 turns taken, you're getting an extra bonus turn. And so, where possible, I like to use these auras in my gameplay if I can. Although I am running a lot of Alice in the 30% attack aura that she gives. But, if this was an alternative or available to me, having a higher speed aura is pretty nice as well. Now, again, my big concern with this character is, in my opinion, the fact that you would kind of need to put epic books into her to really get these buff and debuff chances up to its maximum. In this case, up to 40% on the basic, and then up to 75% here on the A3 Shamanic Lightning. Now, this one's her total book cost, I don't think is that high compared to some epic characters. And actually, if you get lucky here and you get it down on the A2, that's pretty nice, because it's just 1 level up for a cooldown reduction of -1. But the book upgrades are pretty random, right? You don't get to choose, and that's the disappointing part, I guess. So you have 1 here, you have 5 here, and then you have 5 here for a grand total of 11 epic books. Now, I want to kind of pivot this to my game roster of my own here to kind of show you some of the characters that I'm working with, but also where I've placed my epic books. So I'm about 40 days in to my account now, I think, and I have two fully epic characters with epic, or sorry, Rector Drath and Ugo, who obviously, if you do download using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen or in the description down below in the link, you will actually get these characters for free. And I'm not joking that these characters are legitimately amazing. If you started the game with my links, let me know about how good they're good, trust me, like I'm using them. And so they were the first characters that I ended up maxing out with my epic books, and they were pretty expensive, I'll be honest. 6, 12, 7, no, yeah, 4. I'm gonna go from 1 to 5, so 4, 6, and 6. So that's 16 books it took me to max Ugo. Rector Drath took me 5, 4, 9, and 11. So not as many on Rector Drath, but that's how much is that? It's like 27 total that I've used up. And then Geomancer is amazing, right? If you ever pull a Geomancer, number one priority. This character is absolutely amazing. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that, but I just want to talk about all the books that I've spent, all the epic books that I've spent to date. And I think that I have received a few of them from spending. So I did buy the Apprentice Pass, which gave me an extra Rector Drath, and I'm almost certain there was, I don't know if there was enough epic books to max Rector Drath out, but there was quite a few, I believe, in that pack. And so that's because I think it's designed for you to kind of max out Rector Drath with the Apprentice Pass. And then I put in 2, 4, 4, so 2, 4, 4, 10 books into Geomancer. So that's like 30 something, like 35, 36 epic books since I've started this game. Now, again, I did do just some spending. So realistically, I don't know what free to play would have by about 40 days in, maybe about 20. So I don't think I put into any of these other characters. I think that's it. I think the only epic tombs, the books I've put in was Rector Drath, Geomancer, and Ugo. And the point of this all was that, you know, if I want to bring up High Katoon, I need to have, you pretty much need to go all the way to get these debuff chances. I think that you would have to go all the way, pretty much all the way to the end at this point. So you need to have about 10 books or so, whatever I said, 10 or 11 books available for High Katoon. Now, that's a problem because they're not easy to obtain on demand. Now, most books are not easy to obtain on demand, but rare ones are a lot easier. And there are potential alternatives. Yes, I know you're not necessarily going to have all these characters at the start, but I did a video on Apothecary, and I actually think it still holds true that this is a easier kind of budget option for that kind of mechanic that you would want, mainly the turn bar. Now, unfortunately, Apothecary does not put a slow down on the enemy, and Apothecary also does not reduce turn bar. But Apothecary does basically have that A2 from High Katoon. It's identical. The speed buff for two turns to all allies and field turn meter. It's exactly the same, and it's much easier to book out. He also does have obviously a 3-time attack A1. So better for bosses like, say, Fire Knight, for example. Now, High Katoon is a good general PvE type character. I would say if you have the books available. And that's why I haven't actually invested in her quite yet, because I don't have those books available. Now, whether or not she becomes someone that I do, maybe I might consider that right after I finish up my Geomancer, because Geomancer is amazing. If I have extra epic books, I may very well put it into High Katoon. So a lot of this is going to depend on what you have at the time that you get her, and whether or not she is kind of like in that top 5, characters, or at least in your epics section of the characters, like what's after Rector Drath and Ugo for you if you start with those characters. And if High Katoon is your next best character, then that would make sense to put your epic books into there. But as far as where you get epic books, I think that's pretty important to understand too. Also, actually, one real quick note, we're going to do a separate video on masteries, I think, pretty soon here. But there is a mastery down here that does improve those chances. I think it's this one, right? Increases the chances of placing any debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%. So this is very helpful for any character with a debuff. So increasing that the 75% chance, I believe, on this to 80%. Also, I guess if you don't have these upgrades yet, it'll bring it up to 55%, for example, and then 45% with the upgrades on the A1. So definitely I think the only way to really improve those odds. But decreased speed debuff is very important. In fact, I actually don't really have that on any of my characters other than Bellower. Bellower is a pretty good character, does have a 15% decrease speed debuff, and even that's at 75%. Right, so it's not as good as High Katoon's 30%, which is pretty solid and probably explains why it's not a higher percentage chance than that. But she is a free epic character, so there you go. Now, in terms of where you're able to get epic books for free, it is fairly seldom, right? Like, unless I'm missing somewhere, I think a lot of it does come from the clan boss, and even then it's at like higher drop rates. Like, you have a chance here. I don't know which chests where it starts. Yeah, somewhere around here, the knight's chest. So until you can start getting the knight chest, that's where you can start getting the epic books. And even then the drop rates aren't super high. So if you're not doing hard mode, which is where, actually, is it available in normal? The maximum normal chest would have a chance at epic. But again, I honestly, since I've been playing, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've picked up epic books in the last 40 days from doing Demon Lord. It's not a very good drop rate. Now, maybe it's a little bit better when you get to things like Nightmare, but right, that's not something that you're going to be doing in the first month unless you have amazing, amazing pulls when it comes to clan boss available characters. But for me, it's not. I think it's also worth noting when you're considering using High Katoon what you're actually using her for, or what you want to use her for. There is a lot of bosses, not all of them, but there are some bosses that do not allow you to put a speed debuff on in some cases, or you're not able to reduce their turn bar. Now, most of them do, especially the older bosses. But for example, Iron Twins Fortress, this boss here does not allow you to reduce their turn bar. Same reason why I can't do it with Geomancer, right? So I know that if I can land it with Geomancer, you'd be able to land it with High Katoon. There are most of the older dungeons you are able to do that, except for the event dungeon, which is still going right now. Fire Knight's Castle, as long as his shield is down, you can reduce his turn bar. However, Dragon, which I did a video on recently, you cannot. So you cannot reduce. I don't even think you can put speed down, actually. Immune to decreased speed debuffs and turn meter reduction effects. So you could still use High Katoon here, but realistically, you would just be using it for the speed stuff, which at that point, if you have Apothecary, you might as well just use Apothecary. So make sure that if you are using High Katoon, make sure that you're actually taking a look at the bosses and whether or not they're actually immune to turn meter reduction effects. There's only a few of them, especially on the main dungeon map here. However, when you get into harder content, particularly around Doom Tower and Cursed City, that's definitely something that you should be taking a look at. And also for clan bosses, you cannot, as far as I'm aware, can I click on the? I don't think I can. I know you cannot remove turn bar. I don't think you can speed down them either. In fact, for Demon Lord, I don't think that you can do that. So just make sure that you keep an eye on when you can do things or not. However, I do see a lot of people use High Katoon in Arena, and you might get a lot more value out of that. If you focus your High Katoon on speed and accuracy, you do need accuracy to remove that turn meter. It's really important that you understand that. But there is a chance, like I've definitely seen her in here, right? Like, I know some of these are probably bots that I end up coming up against, but I have definitely seen that, right? And it's not in any of these particular compositions. Another good place is going to be in tag team arena because you have 3 teams, right? So if you want to kind of push a little bit further in there, it's very likely you'll run into a High Katoon in one of these team comps that's not a bot or an old account, because you do want to have one of those characters in each of your teams. Now, I do not have High Katoon fully built, although I probably should just put some speed stuff on her so that she can put everyone else's speed bar up. You can see that I have Apothecary here in my, I need to change my defenses because this is not the same that I'm using on my offense. So let's actually go in there. But you can see my offense that I'm using Apothecary, right, who kind of does a similar role here. And so having a character that can fill speed bar or increase speed or anything like that in each of your battle teams is, I think, going to be pretty important for something like this. So make sure that you keep an eye on your tag team arena when you're trying to push for that. Having somebody that can go first, that can speed up everyone else, is the key to arena in general or any PvP. So do keep that in mind as well. So I guess that brings us to a little bit of a conclusion of whether or not High Katoon is worth it. Is she worth putting your books into? That's going to be an individual. I know that's probably not the answer you wanted, but it's probably going to be an individual decision based on your roster, right? Do you have other characters that can fulfill either the same role? I would say Apothecary fills a similar role, not the same role, but a more budget friendly option, being a rare character. Another character that I didn't really point out, but I'm going to point out now, is Eris. While it is not a speed bar related character, though, it is the fact that she can cleanse and she can also place speed up for 2 turns as well. Very easy to book out being a rare character. So this is definitely something that I wanted to point out. I think I may have pointed her out in my Apothecary video as well. And this is completely free to play because you can farm her off of chapter 6, the speed artifact campaign chapter, so you can get her there as well. So another other budget option that you can get a lot easier actually than Apothecary. So it's like Eris to Apothecary to High Katoon. The only issue that I have is just the epic books. Epic books are still, if you're not spending, I feel that epic books are still pretty desirable, and you're really going to have to think about the characters that you have in your roster and whether or not there's anyone that's more deserving of it than her. The reason why, again, the reason why I don't really use her as much right now, I may soon, if I run out of characters that are worth building up, it's mainly to do with the chances, right? I feel like it's going to be significantly better. There's going to be a huge difference in, the extra 15% on the A1 basic and an extra 25% on the A3 here. So there's a big difference on the percent chance. That kind of changes, in my opinion, the viability of the character overall. So yes, in an ideal world, if you're able to max out the epic books on Haiku, absolutely. User, very good character. I would definitely recommend. And actually, others recommend it as well. There are people on if you go to the Hell Hades website, great resource, by the way, marks High Katoon as 4 out of 5, whereas Apothecary is 3.5 out of 5. So again, that's another place that I would check for your resources. The Hell Hades website for Raid has a really good resource for all of the individual characters, has individual guides for each of the characters. That's kind of what I do. Also, another thing to look at, whether or not, in general, whether or not a character is worth taking a look at, usually, I would say take a look at the reviews, right? If they're over like 50 to 100 reviews, there's definitely a reason why. But because this character is widely available, I wanted to do a video and kind of do a little bit of a review on the character to kind of explain it a little bit more for you guys, especially for newer accounts who might be coming up on the 30-day mark and wondering whether or not High Katoon is worth it for your roster. So I hope that some of this was helpful in this video to describe the character and kind of go over whether or not there's any value there for you. And don't forget, if you haven't started playing Raid Shadow Legends yet, then make sure that you download using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen to get yourself a free Epic Rector Draft. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself a free Ugo as well, one of the best epics in the game. Also, don't forget that you can use the promo code Monkey King to get yourself a free legendary Sun Wukong. We're not done yet. Also, there is Alice the Wanderer for a free 7-day logging calendar that you'll get at the end of that. So 2 free legendary champions, 2 free epic champions. This is the best time to start Raid. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be greatly helping out the channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.